source for everything Dynasty Fantasy Football. With your host, John Bauer.
Looking to sell everybody price dependent.
Dan Lamagna.
Too much dysfunction in Cleveland.
And Mitch Sorensen.
Well, it's hard to compete with excellence.
Welcome back to another episode of Dynasty Theory, a proud member of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast Network. I'm your host, John Bauer. You can find me on Twitter at The Bauer Club. And guys, I feel like we just did this last night. I'm getting deja vu. And coincidentally, we're all wearing red. We didn't even plan it. But I'm joined by Dan Lamagna. That is at FF Coach Dan on Twitter. What's going on, Dan?
Man, I am focused. I am just smelling Thursday night football coming up September 10th. Chiefs, Texans. Could you smell it in the air, JB and Mitch? I'm feeling it, boys.
I didn't realize The Rock was joining us tonight. We smell what you're last night we had John Cena, and then tonight we have The Rock. And then we're also joined by Mitch Sorensen. That's at DynoMC on Twitter. What's going on, Mitch?
What's up, guys? Recording 2 nights in a row. We'll see how this turns out, but I'm really excited for this one.
So this is our last episode for the next 2 weeks. Now, if you're listening live on YouTube or Twitter, this is going to be released on Sunday. Mitch, I made the executive decision, Sunday, 8:30. It's not going to be released any earlier than that, so don't worry.
We believe you completely.
Yeah, so let's get right into it.
John, just one more point on that, bud, though. It's going to work out because, see, with you going on vacation, I'm going to be cheating on you during that time, full disclosure, and just doing a little DFS pod to fill the gap.
Yeah.
So in the money Thursday night, and John, I still love you.
I know you do. I know. I don't take it personally. If I'm on vacation, I'm not going to hold it against you, Dan. That's all right. Now, like I said, let's get into it. We are going to be going over some of our risers and fallers from the beginning of the offseason up to this point. And basically, it's our anti-take lock episode. But looking at some of the players that were chosen tonight, we might have a few throwdowns here. So it's going to be very interesting. But Mitch, let's start with you. Who is one player that you're either much higher on at this point in the offseason than you were at the beginning of the offseason, or vice versa?
So first, I'm going to talk about this team a couple times for different reasons, but my first one's going to be Chris Herndon. Like, he's definitely a riser for me. He was someone to where I looked at him as OJ Howard, just someone who, if I had my roster, I was okay with it, but I was never willing to go out and try to acquire him. But now with how that offense is looking, they had 2 opt-outs on the defense. The defense wasn't good to begin with. The offensive line, like Dan's brought up many times, is mediocre at best, more than likely well below average. That team is going to have to throw so much. Mims is already injured. Perriman's already injured. So you have Crowder and you have Herndon. And how can you not like Herndon right now? Because, he's creeping up. Each time I go and update my tier list, he just bumps up a next tier and the next tier each day.
Chris Herndon's one of those guys, when you look at his rookie year, he had a really good rookie year, but a lot's changed since then. So, Mitch, when you and I were doing our projections, he actually came in pretty low initially, but after taking some time to think about it, and when we did our revisions, he went up a little bit. But I think there are a lot of people that have him higher, especially from a dynasty aspect, than we do still. But I would agree this is somebody that he's been rising up my draft board a little bit here. And even for redraft purposes, somebody that I'm actually looking at now, if it's a tight end premium league, and it's for the reasons you talked about. So I completely agree. You have those injuries on the offense and the opt-outs on the defense, a defense that was not good to begin with, like you said. But now he's going to be the 2A or 2B option with Le'Veon Bell catching passes out of the backfield. So we very well could see a Chris Herndon that sees 80 or 90 targets possibly, and that's going to be a big impact there, especially in tight end premium leagues. Dan, what are your thoughts on Herndon? It's a player that we haven't really talked about much throughout the offseason. Were you high on him to begin with, or are you also aligned with Mitch and you've been rising here as the offseason's progressed?
Yeah, we haven't talked about him a lot, and I'm happy Mitch brought him up tonight. And he's definitely, I agree with Mitch's take as far as him being a riser. He's definitely rised up my boards. I probably have him in that 13 to 18 range in my rankings. I'm still being a little bit bullish. I didn't put him on my list of tight end risers, even though he is one. So I think I agree with Mitch. But, I haven't said it in a while, guys. There's still a lot of dysfunction with the Jets. Mitch brought up the O-line. I think they still have to shore up and prove that right side of the line could hold up. They still have Adam Gase. Herndon, he seems to be on a good path right now. I think he let us down, in last year. There was high hopes for him at one point. He was a riser in the past. So I'm a little bit scarred still. So Mitch is a little bit braver, it sounds. I think he's on the right path with them, but I'm gonna say he's gonna have to prove it first. So I'm gonna hold on that one, JB.
Just like we talked about Cam Akers last night, it seems like Chris Herndon's in one of those situations where it's the perfect storm for him. Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson going down with the injury, and now Chris Herndon, like I said, the opportunity is there. And Mitch, I want you to talk about what you would be willing to move for him, because I actually think it might even it's a little high for me.
So right now, I'll be honest, I have him in the same tier as Ian Thomas, Jonnu Smith, and Blake Jarwin. So he is with those guys for me. So I'm willing to go out. A 2022nd isn't going to cut it, but I'm willing to do a 2022nd and someone like T. Higgins. Maybe
2021 second.
Oh, did I say 20? My bad. Yeah, 2021 second. And then just adding a player that was picked in the second this year. So pretty much 2 seconds for him. And I think that'd be able to get it done at this point.
Now, do you want to specify what format that's in?
It has to be tight end premium. I mean, you don't want him in a non-premium league in the first place, but
I just want to make sure our listeners know that they're not
everyone
going out.
knows I play in premiums only.
But you have 2.0 premium, of course, in the notes. But our listeners, they can't see your notes, Mitch. You need to open up your brilliant mind and let our listeners in.
Well, that could be an issue. Having a brilliant mind, it's kind of, you need that.
All right, Dan, give us now. You have quite a list here. So I don't know if you want to pick one from a position or if you want to rattle through a few, but you pulled the JB special here and you brought about 38 players to the table here.
You've rubbed off on me. I think I said in my notes today I was going to, take 50 players just to pull a JB. So, but I will rapid fire. I won't go too long on them, but just key points. 3 tight ends that have moved up my ranks, sticking with the position here. And hear my rationale here. So Mark Andrews is one of them. And I've been high on Mark Andrews from last year. I'm not saying he, came out of nowhere. I was low on him in the offseason, because I know this is one of those eyebrow raisers as you looked at my notes tonight. But the key thing I'm saying with Mark Andrews is if he gets any increase in snaps this year, I think he has potential to be tight end 1. So I am just, instead of last year thinking, hey, I'm taking him ahead of everyone else, and I really benefited last year. I'm saying go the extra mile this year, and if you don't get Kelsey and Kittle, be very happy with that at the value you're going to get Andrews, because he might be better. So he's rising because I'm really drinking the Kool-Aid there. Second is Evan Ingram.
Before you move on, because I have one point. What if he doesn't see that increase in targets? We know that he's dealing with diabetes. What if they always limit and monitor his usage and snap count? And that is a concern.
Then I still think you have a solid tight end 1. You still have a quality player. You're just not getting that. He's not going to pass Kelsey and Kittle, I don't think, because then you're relying on the quality of his snaps and that tight end production, which may not always be there. And he did get banged up a little bit last year. I'm just thinking Hayden Hurst is gone. He's by far the clear number 1. But do they still monitor the snaps and give them to Nick Boyle? I don't know if I'm really excited about that. So, again, I'm encouraged. I'm optimistic. He's rising as a guy I would gamble to take that big jump. But, hey, if I over-gamble, I'm still content where I land.
All right, let's hear the rest of your tight ends.
Shifting through, I'm putting Evan Ingram back on my map a little bit. We talked about different tight end strategies where I don't get one of those elite guys, and we know who they are. Then I am ready to roll the dice this year on Evan Ingram. Maybe you're in my head a little bit with Danny Dimes and the Giants offense there. I'm going to bet that he mostly stays healthy. He's in great shape, and I'm giving him a chance to enter that top tier again. And my last one's my true riser, guys. We talked about that next tier, and Mitch mentioned him in that tier. It's Jonnu Smith for me. And, Mitch, I tried to take your advice even before last night's show where, if you want a guy, now's the time to go after him because you're not going to get him. And I have not had much success getting Jonnu Smith, so that concerns me. But I just got this gut feeling that Titans offense is going to take just enough of a step where he's going to see that volume uptick. Give up on Corey Davis, guys. Jonnu Smith is the number 2 wide receiver in Tennessee this year.
I have 2 comments here. And first of all, with Evan Ingram, I couldn't include him. If I put together a list, which I didn't, again, as the host, I can take the pressure off myself. I don't have to take any of the blame for a bad take every once in a while. So for me, Evan Ingram, I couldn't put him on a list if I had one because I've been high on him. And I know, Dan, there were a lot of concerns. Mitch, previously, you talked about, you understand his value as tight end 4 in dynasty leagues, but you wouldn't pay that price. And I understand that. There are the injury concerns. But up to this point throughout the offseason, let me find wood all through this room. I'm knocking on it. We haven't heard of any issues. Maybe there has been something, but I haven't heard of it. And then we know that Jason Garrett's coming over as the offensive coordinator. He likes to utilize the tight ends. And I do think that's a player that's going to benefit. And we just know about his athletic profile as well. And then Jonnu Smith, I still have a concern because people were pointing to the fact that Delaney Walker's not there. Was he really there the last 2 years anyway? And I know you want to give these young tight ends time to grow, but I still don't know if Jonnu Smith really can take the next step. And Mitch, before I turn it over to you, I just got to share the comment from J Mike. Mitch with the sweet haircut, JB letting the locks grow. Yes, I am. And then Coach keeps the backward cap streak alive. J Mike, we hope you are doing well as well. Now, Mitch, what are your thoughts on Evan Ingram and Jonnu Smith? Has your position changed at all?
No, Jonnu Smith is right where he has been. He hasn't gone up, gone down. I'm kind of in a wait and see with him. He's had the chances to do it on the field. He's flashed for a game, but then disappeared for the next 5. So he's someone I'm really hesitant on acquiring. And Evan Ingram, I still have him on a team. I'm going to test Dan on this one. We have a league to where I want to trade Evan Ingram because I have enough tight ends to be okay. So Dan, you're going to get an offer tonight, and we'll see if we actually get it done.
Yeah, and it just clarification too on your words, JB. You know how Mitch says that I'm with you. I'm looking forward to that offer, but just a little. You know how I am literally on John.
He's already backtracking. It hasn't even been 2 minutes. He's backtracking.
I just want the rationale behind my picks tonight, in that we were talking about guys that at the beginning of this offseason, they were at the bottom. Like I was off the Evan Ingram train at the bottom of the offseason. I think that's the key point for me, and now I'm back on it. I'm giving hope one more time. Don't let me down, Evan Ingram.
No, so
if he heard, he better be listening.
I have a feeling he is. I did hear in his downtime, he listens to Dynasty Theory. He said everybody on that show is okay except the guy that wears the backwards hat every show. But I do like the tight ends that you guys brought to the table. Chris Herndon, especially with the situation, the injuries, he makes sense. Mark Andrews, not a guy that Dan was low on, but a guy that he might even be higher on, so still a riser. Evan Ingram, Dan, you were avoiding him all throughout the offseason. And then Jonnu Smith, that's the only guy that I'm still a little hesitant on, and I side with Mitch there. Who's
Jonnu? Who is Jonnu? Is that a clown that works in Tennessee? This is Jonnu. It's Jonnu.
I call him Jonnu Smith.
Just checking.
Well, that's good for all the crap you give me about names.
Jonnu Smith. Did you guys see the GIF of him?
No. Ooh, 0 out of 10 on that one, man.
Come on. That had to hit home with somebody there. All right, Mitch, you have a running back here. Who is it?
Yeah, it's Josh Jacobs. I've talked about him a ton, but in January, I didn't want to have him on a single roster. I actually made a trade for him in a league, and I was begging anybody, like, please just come give me his value, and he is yours. And no one was willing to do it. But now I want to acquire him in every league. We've talked about it before, but this Raiders offensive line, I think, is going to end up being top 2. It's them and the Saints as far as who's going to stay, at the very tippy top. And how they built that team helps out the running game so much. They have Ruggs. Tyrell Williams is still going to be on the field. Even if he doesn't catch the ball, all he has to do is make the safety back up a little bit. They have Waller still. So 8-man in the box just isn't going to happen with Jacobs this year. And so I absolutely love him. And he has the most touchdown upside in the league this year.
Throughout the offseason, you've been talking about this Raiders offensive line, which I can appreciate. But every time, and Dan, I'm sure you've noticed, I think you went from saying in April, this is a top 10 line. In May, top 5. Last week, top 3. Now they're top 2. Yes. They're really rising up your board.
That's what research does. I mean, they were top 5 last year. They're bringing everybody back. Nothing has changed. And with the COVID issues, I think any offensive line that has to add an extra piece is going to have some communication issues. You don't have to worry about that with the Raiders at all.
Yeah, he's right there. All 5 starters are back on that offensive line. And, their left tackle, Colton Miller's developing, and they're just a bunch of maulers. And I'm starting to drink that Kool-Aid too with Mitch, where I just think he's going to get a lot of volume. I'm starting to think he might catch passes, guys.
Mm-hmm.
In our projections, we have him with a slight uptick from our initial thought, but I still don't think it's enough. Would I be surprised if he's a running back 1 this year? No, because we have him in that 10 to 12 range, but I still think his upside is capped, and we are relying on that touchdown upside that Mitch talked about. What if this offense flounders? Josh Jacobs, it's going to hit him the hardest. And what about the injury concerns? Going back to high school, Mitch?
I mean, I have it listed here. You asked me who we trade him for, and I mentioned Miles Sanders, someone who also has, had injury history last year. And so in his price range, all of the guys right around him, they all have injury issues, or they have volume issues, or there's
you could nitpick. Yeah, that's for sure.
But with the Raiders weren't very good last year, and he still was a fantasy asset every single week for you. And moving forward,
and that's a trade you could get done. If you had Miles Sanders, I do think in many situations, now I think sometimes they're going to be so closely valued, many people might see it as lateral move. But then your other player here was Derrick Henry. I don't know that you could get Josh Jacobs. I think you would have to add to Derrick Henry to get Josh Jacobs.
I would have to add to Derrick Henry? Really? See, I thought I could actually get something added to Jacobs to get Henry. Now, what does Dan think about this?
I think that would be extremely difficult.
I have Henry in tier 1 and Jacobs in my tier 2 of running backs. And you can make a case for Jacobs in that, the higher end of tier 1. But King Henry, he's on top right now, JB. So I'm with Mitch.
All right. So after this episode, I am going to post a poll on Twitter.
Oh, well, it's a Twitter poll.
And they're 100% accurate all the time.
Corrected, because Twitter absolutely was completely okay with that trade that I made yesterday. And there's no way anybody should be like, hey, that's you said
that trade was growing on you, but I would be interested to see just the general population, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, and PPR, because that knock that I threw at Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry has it as well. Mm-hmm. And then 2 Drink in the chat, he missed the red shirt memo. 2 Drink, you have time, go change, man. But then he also said redraft. This isn't redraft theory, but let's talk about it. Redraft, half PPR, Austin Eckler or Josh Jacobs. In half PPR, I would go Josh Jacobs here, I think, in 2020. Is there any issue there?
Same here.
I'm going to disagree and go to Austin
Eckler. Really?
All right, well, here. So, Dan, go over to your running backs and start with Mr. Eckler, because he's on your list.
Yeah, so Eckler, I think I was late to the party in, because I know a lot of people, they loved all those catches last year, and I know that's definitely a concern that he's not going to get those, be peppered by Phillip Rivers as much. But the coach of me is coming out with this Eckler pick too now, and I just think he is the guy, and maybe I'm drinking the Hard Knocks Kool-Aid too and just watching him. But, I mean, he is just the captain. He is the leader. He is the man on that team. Mike Williams is already out week 1. I think they're going to find ways to get him the ball any and every way they could get him. And I am not excited about their backup backs. Josh Kelly, there's a little bit of upside. He's still a rookie. He's barely had any contact. Just Justin Jackson, yeah, I don't know. He's okay. I would not want to take Austin Eckler off the field if I'm that coach, and I would want to get him the ball any way he can. So to me, I think he's like CMC light, and the guys I put on my list tonight, JB, are guys that were either going into this, off season were in my second tier running backs, and a lot of them I'd even consider them taking them in the first round of drafts, like the late first round if you're getting those later picks. And a lot of my drafts, I like going 2 running backs in the first 2 rounds, again depending on the format. Eckler's definitely in that role for me, and I would just take him over Jacobs. Again, like Mitch, pick on Jacobs, but I think he's going to get touchdowns. He's going to get carries. I think he's just going to get the touches.
All right, so here's a follow-up question in the chat from 2 Drink, and this is, I know his handle is FL 2 Drink minimum. Tonight it's 2 question maximum. So after this, you're cut off, man. That was pretty clever. I just came up with that. Mitch, are you more worried about the secondary running back options for the Chargers or the Raiders?
That's a really good question. I would probably I'm more worried about the Raiders, because what if they do end up have Lynn Bowden just being this absolutely really good third down back? Rashard's already good at it. And then they have Bowden. I'm not sure how you say it, but
that's all right. I'm still saying Jonnu Smith over
right.
here.
But they have him as well. And that, if he ends up being really good, then that just absolutely caps Jacobs' upside to where you don't have to worry about that with Eckler. There isn't anyone on that team that I think is going to go take passing work away from him in the running back position.
And then we have a comment here from Fusion Fantasy Football. The only legitimate use of vacated targets is that more unexpected wide receiver vacated targets go to running backs than anyone. If Mike Williams misses time, that ends all volume doubts for Eckler. My only thing is Mike Williams wasn't getting, there is some volume there, but it's mostly, the higher average depth of target downfield shots. He's not exactly a possession receiver, but I do understand what's being said there. Anything else there on Austin Eckler, Dan?
I just think he's a matchup nightmare for linebackers, but again, excited to have Eckler or Jacobs on my roster, but he shot up my boards. And if you don't mind, JP, I'm going to dive into my next ones here, man.
Mm-hmm. Wait, two things. Who's JP? I heard JP there. You're making fun of me for Jonnu Smith, and you're calling me the wrong initials.
I had a former quarterback named JP. Maybe I was having flashbacks, JP. I thought,
You've never seen me
throw the ball at all? No.
Not very well. I was just going to say that. All right, so your other running backs, but before we talk about that, Austin Eckler, this has nothing to do with his workout videos, right? Right, Coach Dan? You wouldn't invest too much stock in those, right?
Did you see him leap over those back? Okay. No, nothing to do with them. No.
Dan loves workout videos. It's true. Without a doubt, Dan is a big fan of workout videos.
He is in shape. He is coaching those young running backs up on Hard Knocks. He is the guy.
All right, let's talk about your other running backs here.
Two other guys in the Eckler class. Again, one I'm probably late to the party, and although I did have him number 2 in my rookie rankings behind Burrow because of the super flex format, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's another one that is the guy, and Miles Sanders is the guy. So I think you have 3 people there that, you know what, you don't get Cook, you don't get Kamara, you don't get Zeke, you're later in that first round. You got a lot of potential with these guys to get a lot of touches, a lot of volume on good offenses. Give me any of those 3 guys. They've all shot up the ranks, and I'd be thrilled to have any of them. All
right, Mitch, any thoughts there?
I was going to say this is why you don't take Burrow 1. You don't take 102. I mean
1020.
Yeah, 1020. Because Jonathan Taylor is already getting drafted ahead of both of them. Dobbins is going to be drafted ahead of him as soon as he gets that starting role. So you're just going to lose value the second that you do it, even though it's always said, no, quarterbacks, you take them in the rookie draft. 104, 105 maybe, but definitely not in the top half.
And we always see the discrepancy. Hold on, Dan. Hold on to your flag. I see it. But we always see that discrepancy in values between rookie drafts and super flex leagues and startups. Whereas in rookie drafts, you see a lot of people taking Burrow, Tua in those first 2 spots, even in 12-team super flex leagues. But then you look at startups, and that's never the case. They're never going before those top, even 3 running backs. So like you said, 104, 105. And it's always interesting to look at that discrepancy between the values in the 2 different types of drafts. And now, Dan, this is your only challenge tonight.
But what if I win it? Isn't this NFL
I like that.
on this podcast?
I'll allow it.
Well, I'm the referee here, so you're not going to win it, but let's hear it.
Oh, man. So I agree with Mitchell's point, and it's well taken. But the part of that I'm challenging Mitchell on this specific play here, okay? What if that dynasty roster has Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, or Big Ben as their main quarterback, and their second is like Tyrod Taylor? Doesn't it make sense to get yourself Burrow, so at least now you got a quarterback of the future? That's the scenario I'm envisioning in my head. Talk to me there.
No, because if you would have drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire before him or Jonathan Taylor, like Jonathan Taylor's in the same spot now that he was in May. You could trade Jonathan Taylor for almost any quarterback you want out of the top 5. And so if you went and offered Jonathan Taylor right now for, let's say, Carson Wentz, the Carson Wentz guy would smash accept it.
Unless it's a situation where they have 2 quarterbacks in the season.
I mean, there's going to be someone in the league that has a quarterback like that's acquirable. And you can even look at last year. Last year's running back class wasn't very good is what we thought. Now look at Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs. Now all of a sudden they're 2nd-round picks going ahead of all these other quarterbacks.
All right, so to round out your thoughts here on What are the arms going up in the air for?
I intervened with your job as referee there, and I just gave Mitch the win because I think that's a good point for our listeners that you got to put your trade hat on and don't panic when you have those old quarterbacks. Be ready to trade and get more value than you would have got just picking Burrow. So kudos, Mitch.
There we go.
Man. Appreciate it.
All right, so to round out the risers here, let's get through this pretty quickly. Mitch, who do you have?
So my last one's just going to be Ryan Tannehill. He's someone who, as soon as the season was over, everyone heard regression. But we know that's a ceiling now. We know he can have those games. And his floor isn't that bad. He wasn't a bad quarterback back with Miami. He just had Adam Gase as a head coach. So I was always okay with him as a fantasy quarterback going back to Miami. And now he still has a really good offensive line. He has Brown, who I think can actually do a lot more than what we might even have on projections this year. And just that offense moving forward, he's a guy he's Kirk Cousins right now, but a younger version of it. Someone, I'm completely okay having.
All right, Dan, throw your quarterbacks and then get through your wide receivers here for us.
Cam Newton and Deshaun Watson on the quarterback range. Cam Newton's the obvious one. I mean, he just wasn't on the radar. And now not only is he on my radar, but I have about 50% shares in my dynasty leagues of Cam. I am all in on what he could do with the GOAT Bill Belichick. And then Deshaun Watson, the key for me is I love Deshaun Watson. He was always one of my favorite elite quarterbacks, but I was pretty hard on him in the Texans offseason moves and then was really skeptical about their O-line. But after further research, I'm starting to dig their O-line a little bit. It's kind of turning the corner and improving. And I got him back at my quarterback 4 right now, where, earlier in this offseason, I had Kyler Murray ahead of him, Russell Wilson ahead of him. And I think you could argue this, but if his weapons stay healthy, and even if 1 or 2 of them might go down, if you just give him some time, I think he can make any receiver relevant. So I'm back on the Deshaun Watson train there, and he's rose back up.
And really quick, Mitch, I'm sorry. Ryan Tannehill is actually 1 month older than Kirk Cousins. And you're on mute. I cannot hear you. I can understand if you're
you looked it up wrong. I mean, I don't know. Okay. Wikipedia is wrong. I'm right. It's wrong. But no, I mean, I just look at him kind of as the same type of player.
But not younger. I just want to clarify there. All right, Dan, bring us home here on the risers.
Good riser, Mitch with Tannehill. He'll help my John do riser.
I appreciate that.
And then wrapping up, receiver risers. Again, this is kind of like Eckler for me with Calvin Ridley. I just think I'm late to the party on him. But, I listen to Twitterverse enough, and I believe Ridley's ready for a breakout year. Marquise Hollywood Brown, again, I've been on him from the beginning, but that love has grown, and I've taken him at some sweet spots in some fantasy drafts, and just not losing out on Hollywood Brown. I think he's in for a big time year. And then Michael Gallup, surprisingly enough, for my Cowboys, I think there's enough balls to go around that Cowboy offense there. And McCarthy saying he's a number 1 also. I'm going to drink a little extra Dallas Cowboy Kool-Aid tonight.
I'm still on board with 2 of those receivers, Calvin Ridley. Mitch and I, we've been talking about him all offseason. Marquise Brown, I'm nowhere near your level of excited over him. But Michael Gallup, he's the one that I was very interested in when you threw him on this list, because I've gone back and forth on him. I was acquiring him. I was very high on him prior to the NFL draft. And then CeeDee Lamb goes there. And yeah, it hurt a little bit. But now I've kind of gone back, and Michael Gallup has been a receiver that I've been acquiring in multiple places. So I like that list. I have no issues overall, except for Marquise Brown. Mitch, any thoughts there before you move on?
I love Marquise Brown now. If he's healthy, he came into last year unhealthy. Like, he didn't have a training camp last year.
We're reminded of that every single day by everybody.
And it's a point that should be made. And now he's had the whole one. Are you saying
Lamar Jackson, number 1 wide receiver?
Since people talk about it, we just shouldn't bring it up anymore. It's just everyone should already know Marquise Brown, his whole history.
No, that's the only point that you guys have. But we're not going to talk about the available passing opportunities in that offense.
So you don't think the passing volume is going to go up at all? I think there's a strong chance that defense could be worse this year. Passing volume goes up, Brown gets more.
We have a slight uptick, yes, but I don't think it's going to be significant enough. Dan, where do you see him falling here in 2020?
He might lead the league in yards per catch, John.
I didn't ask that.
Deshaun Jackson might do that too, though.
I see 1,000 plus yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns. I think he'll have plenty of catches. He's Lamar Jackson's number one. Andrews is going to draw traffic to the middle. They've got a great running game. This offense is a juggernaut. It should be talked about with Kansas City and Dallas.
It's not a hidden secret.
How could you be down on their number one wide receiver for a juggernaut?
There is no way in hell he's going to have 1,000 yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns. I will bet you whatever you want on that, Dan.
I would not make that bet. No, I'm on Dan's side.
Well, then we'll talk about this off the air, because I even got a fan for tonight's episode because I was so sweaty last night, and now I'm getting all riled up again. And I got to step away for a minute, and because of that, we're gonna take a minute. We're gonna have a word here from our sponsor. Who out there is ready to unveil their summer body? I'll be the first to admit that quarantine hasn't necessarily been great for my physique, but at least I don't look like I'm wearing a bear rug on my chest. I have already gone on one vacation this year, and even though I might not have that six-pack, guys, my chest, it was silky smooth. Go to manscaped.com and check out the Perfect Package 3.0 kit, which includes the Lawnmower 3.0 body trimmer with a ton of other great stuff. And if you subscribe to the Perfect Package, not only are you going to get a new blade refill delivered to your front door every 3 months, but for a limited time, you're going to get 2 free gifts. You're going to get the travel bag and also the high-performance reduced chafing Manscaped boxer briefs. And I can tell you, they are beyond comfortable. So go over to manscaped.com, check out all of the great products they have, and use code Theory20 to get not only 20% off, but also free shipping. Again, that's code Theory20 for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Not only does Manscaped have me feeling silky smooth, but it gives me the opportunity to step away whenever Dan and Mitch get me so riled up that I'm ready to flip my computer over. But anyway, let's talk about some of our followers here. And Mitch, we're going to start with you. Hold on one second. Dan, we're going to limit you to one running back and one wide receiver here in this group. So pick which one, whatever one you'd like there. But let's hear your timeout.
So for now, I need like 2 timeouts. I need one because remember that, Mitch. When John has a list of 100, we got to limit them to one. And then Fusion Fantasy there reminded me of a chat we had in the past about Gallup being number 1 over Cooper. I totally disagree. Just remember, there's enough balls to go around in that offense there. But Amari Cooper will be Dallas's the wide receiver 1. Like he's got me worked up like you, JB.
We're all frazzled. We're all flustered. But like I said, Dan, I'm going to limit you to one running back, one wide receiver. Let's skip the quarterback and tight ends that you have there. Mitch, lead us off here. Who is one of your followers? Dan, put your arms down.
All right. So I'm just going to talk about the Jets again because it goes off who I brought up with Chris Herndon is I was acquiring Le'Veon Bell in every league that I could because he was getting the volume and you could get him for a really good value earlier in the offseason. Now, if I could get him off every team, I would. But the problem is nobody wants him either. But this offense could be really bad to the point to where his 3 yards per carry last season could end up being lower this year. Like, I don't have any faith that there's going to be a rushing game for him at all. So he will still get passing work. But at that point, he's, 3-yard running back who doesn't have any real upside for you. And then just to include that, I'm going to put Denzel Mims on the list. I have him on a lot of rosters right now. But rookies that missed their whole first training camp, come in late. I mean, Marquise Brown might be the only one that actually showed up during the season. Like, if you could get value out of Mims and add him in on a deal and get a better player, I would do that right now with any team that I could.
I'm still okay with Le'Veon Bell here for 2020. And this kind of goes back to our discussion about Melvin Gordon on our last episode. And he's a player that, yes, if I'm not contending and he's able to pop off a few games, that's going to be a prime opportunity to move him once the season starts. But you're not getting him for anything, right? You're not getting anything for him, just like you said, Mitch. But then I do think it's difficult to acquire him if you were somewhat high on him still. But, 28-year-old running back, I understand the long-term concern, but I still like him for 2020. And I'm not sure why you didn't speak up when we were doing our projections if you didn't like him.
We dropped that whole offense down. Like, he ended up having a lot because they don't have anybody else. So when you're doing the projections, someone has to get the market share. Like someone's going to get that many rushing attempts. And so that's the hard thing with projections. Something that I'm definitely going to have to work on for next year is how do you do that when there's no one else on the team to give it to? Because you're not going to give 150 to Frank Gore.
Now you're not going to have to fix that though whenever he ends up being running back 10 this year.
We will check this. I have Le'Veon Bell in quite a few leagues. That means John doesn't have him in those leagues because we're in a ton of leagues together. I will see if John will actually make a trade for the first time in August. And we'll see if we get some trades done this week for Le'Veon Bell.
But keep in mind, I'm gonna backtrack like Dan.
Shocking.
A 2020 projection is much different than our dynasty value. Just keep that in mind.
I won't ask for a running back 10 for him.
Okay, we'll talk after the show. Dan, who is your running back that you want to bring up here as your faller throughout the offseason?
Before I do that, could you explain what okay with Le'Veon Bell is? Because now you're saying the value is different in Dynasty, John. For me, like, I guess I'm okay with Le'Veon Bell this year too. I mean, the left side of the Lions got Becton there at left tackle, so they have made improvements. Right side's very uncertain. I'm not really confident in that offense. I'm okay with them, but we get to that point in the draft. If I'm taking running back, I'd rather roll the dice on Gurley or go Chris Carson or James Conner. So I don't want to just be okay with them. That's my issue. So I agree with Mitch that he's a faller. Yeah, I'm okay with them, but I want to be okay. Can you define okay? What's okay to you, JB?
Well, hold on. Let's pull up some ADP because
without saying price dependent.
No, there's no price dependent, but Dan is saying that Le'Veon Bell is in that range with those running backs. And I just want to confirm, I haven't done a startup.
I think he's right behind him. I mean, if he's not with them, he's going to be the next backup. I would guess Montgomery's right there as well.
Yeah, but again, my thing is with his 2020 projection. That's what I was speaking to. Mitch put the dynasty spin on it, talking about.
Yeah, we were talking about dynasty because this is, in case you forgot what show you were on, this is the Dynasty Theory podcast. I know these projections are like super cool and like everyone should look at them and they're amazing, but this is still Dynasty Theory.
Coming out, I think, later tonight or tomorrow. But no, you brought up that offense here in 2020. Yes, dynasty, but you also brought up their 2020 outlook. Did you not? You did not mention that.
Well, yeah, it's not going to get any better for him next year.
All right, we're going to move on here.
Don't you love how that happens, Dan? Like, whenever John doesn't agree, it's either we go to an ad or he just like, nope, we're done.
It's nothing about me not agreeing, but I'm just going to keep getting louder, and our listeners don't want to hear me blow my freaking gasket.
Yes, they do. They love it.
I don't think they want that. Dan, what running back has dropped down your dynasty rankings here throughout the offseason?
Just say Le'Veon Bell. Let's keep this going.
That would be wrong. All right, JB. I'm going to follow the rules here, and I'm not going to mention quarterback like Foles or Trubisky, ocean bottom quarterbacks, because you told me I can't mention them. All right, so I'm not going.
You were very high on them to start the offseason.
They might have been on the radar, but I wanted to use your term ocean bottom. I haven't been able to use that in a while.
Ocean bottom depth, yep.
For running back, for me, it's Marlon Mack. Maybe Sony Michel. Those two have really disappointed me. Marlon Mack, you guys know, I was sky high before, Jonathan Taylor time. And, I still have a little bit of hope of some standalone value this year where, maybe he gets the rock. There has been a lot of reports that he's still looking good. He's talented. Don't discount him. And I think it's a free agent year where he lands somewhere good next year. So I'm not completely off the train, but he's doing nothing for my rosters. I'm not too excited. So it's definitely a decline from the beginning of the year. And then our boy Sony Michel, if I could sneak in a second one like JB would, and just say I think it's Damian Harris time, and James White. I think it's time to pass the torch.
Yes, it is. And then Mitch, Dan brought up Marlon Mack. Let's stick with the same team because you have a wide receiver you want to talk about.
Yeah, it's T.Y. Hilton. As soon as Rivers went there, I was like, okay, I could see this working out. But I saw Hilton getting a lot of the slot work. So far as he isn't going to be in the slot at all, it's going to be Paris Campbell. And everything coming out of the training camp so far, all the reports are he's not pushing the ball down the field at all. It's going to the tight ends and it's going to the running back. So everyone's making jokes about Naheem Hines catching 100 passes this year, but that's just him not And that might be the game manager approach. That might be what they're telling him is like, hey, you don't need to throw the ball 40 yards down the field. This defense is really good. The offensive line's great. Just get us 10, 15 yards at a time. And if that's the case, I don't want T.Y. Hilton at all.
And that's fair. And I think a lot of the dynasty community is on board with that. Dan, bring us home here. And I want you to talk about the first receiver you have on this list, because I don't know why.
I think John's in a hurry tonight. John,
I'm all fired up over here. I'm all fired up.
Yeah, and I like to say I believe in Frank Wright, though, Mitch. I think that's one of the better coaching staffs in the National Football League, and I think you can't read into those reports too much just yet. Definitely concerns there. I know you made a point, I think, in your show notes of just not being able to trade him for N'Keal Harry, and I agree with that because of age. So, I'm a little more down on Hilton than the beginning, but I'm still optimistic he could put together a good year, and they'll get creative as they go. For me, my guy, I know you see it, Allen Robinson, JB. And the reason for that is the reason you want to let me talk about my quarterbacks tonight that were on this list here. So, yeah, I think he's mad, Mitch, that I'm stealing some JB thunder there, and I gave more than 3 or 4 guys. But anyway.
No, I'm going to tell you what my issue is, Dan.
I'm just going to put myself on mute because this one's going to go for a good 10 minutes here. So you guys just –
All right, so we're here at the 41-minute mark. We'll see how long this goes. But you're bringing up players – You bashed Allen Robinson earlier in the offseason because of the quarterback concerns. Is that correct?
No, earlier in the offseason, like it was only one season ago. I mean, I was almighty Allen Robinson. I think he's one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League. Big time A-Rob, truther, okay? But I'm getting lower and lower on the Bears offense, even lower than I was at the beginning of the year. And I believe your show notes were, who has fallen in your list from the beginning of the offseason to now? And
okay, so at the beginning of the offseason, what range would you have had him in compared to now?
Pulling it up here. So A-Rob right now, I've got him in that middle second tier of wide receivers. But I am not taking him where I have him even ranked in Dynasty. I'm going to take Calvin Ridley ahead of him. I'm going to take Cortland Sutton ahead of him. And I would even rather Terry McLaurin, A.J. Brown, D.K. Metcalf, Marquise Brown ultimately. I will let someone else take Allen Robinson and root for Nick Foles and Trubisky and whoever's going to be that Bears quarterback this year and get better draft value with one of those young marquee studs. I just think it's like a black hole in Chicago right now. So he's falling.
Allen Robinson has proven time and time again that he can be an effective, and this has nothing to do with his jersey being up on my wall. Let the record show.
Bias.
He has shown time and time again. So I'm not quite sure, one, how he could be somebody that's falling down your board, but also I think this is a player that you brought up during the early stages of the offseason that you were down on strictly because of the quarterbacks. And it's the same way that you brought up Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown, guys that you were high on to begin with. And it's like you're almost double counting it essentially.
Lamar Jackson, Mitchell Trubisky. Lamar Jackson. And everyone said Foles is winning this job. Now, all of a sudden, it's Mitchell Trubisky's job again.
And Allen Robinson
offense has gotten
wide receiver.
Has this Bears offense? We said in the previous shows that this Bears offense is designed to run by picking up 8 tight ends in the offseason, which they have, and Jimmy Graham is back, guys. Right? We read that report yesterday. I think it's going down instead of up for A-Rob. I'm concerned about that Bears offense, and I think his touches go down.
But there's nothing
too many more attractive receivers that I would rather than him right now. I'm going to turn on the TV on Sunday, John, and I'm going to watch Mitch's riser, Ryan Tannehill, pepper A.J. Brown all day instead of turning on that Bears game. I don't want to put that Bears game on.
There was no doubt in my mind that over the next 3 years, Allen Robinson outscores A.J. Brown. He outscores Terry McLaurin, outscores Cortland Sutton, Marquise Brown. That entire list of receivers you brought up, and I don't know if it's because of the quarterbacks or the dysfunction in Chicago, Allen Robinson is going to outscore all of those wide receivers over the next 3 years. So you want to talk about dynasty, you want to put your money where your mouth is, Allen Robinson, that flag is planted.
So I got to take my hat off here. So you are taking Allen Robinson over 3 risers on trending offenses with better quarterbacks than the Bears.
Yes.
The Bears run and play defense, grind it out team that's just hoping to stay in games this year.
Allen Robinson, he demands targets. We have Fusion in the chat here. I think he's still in here. We talk about wide receivers and vacated targets, and you earn those targets. Allen Robinson does it with every quarterback he plays with, Dan.
You're relying on the past there, Mitchell. Team, or look, I don't even know who I'm talking to now. JB, teams are going to make adjustments. I'm going to be double covering Allen Robinson. He's going to have to throw the tight ends and Tariq Cohen out of the backfield a lot this year.
But when you look at it last year, why would they not have made Trey Burton beat them? Why would they not?
Last year, Burton couldn't even stay on the field last year. They didn't have a tight end to throw to last year. Jasper Horsted finally became relevant late in the year.
Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet, who shouldn't even have been, what was he, a second-round draft pick, third-round? Come on.
To my point, the Bears' offense isn't getting any better. The plan's to run the ball. You give me DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin. I'm excited about those guys. I am not excited about anything Chicago Bears.
Every single one. But again, I
over 3 years too. I love that. That even increased my odds.
Yeah. So we'll figure something out because I think we have a lot of wagers here. I am so fired up. Thank goodness I'm going on vacation.
All right. Away. So now I can jump in. It was a solid 5 minutes there. It was a very good job, guys. But so I kind of agree with Dan. He's not falling for me, but I actually have Allen Robinson right next to DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, Calvin Ridley, Cooper Kupp. I have AJ Brown over him. Just sorry. I agree with a lot of what Dan said,
buddy.
And I still really like, if I have A-Rob going as my wide receiver 1 going to this year, I'm still okay with it. But I'm not really happy with it. If I had AJ Brown instead, I'd be a lot happier.
You know what, John? You're a loyal guy, and I commend that, and I appreciate that. Your wife's a lucky lady, and I love Allen Robinson. I'm not going out here and saying there's something wrong with Allen Robinson. I love him. I wish he was a Cowboy. I love Allen Robinson, but I do not love his situation. I think his situation is terrible compared to those other receivers. But you're loyal. So I'll give you credit.
Track record is there. It's not a one-time thing. A trend has developed where it doesn't matter. You could throw him the ball, Dan. And with that catch radius and the way he demands those targets, as I brought up, he's going to have a very successful at least next 3 years.
I hope so. I like the guy. I think he's going to be burnt out by the end of the season with Mitchell hanging him out to dry or Nick Foles if Nick Foles is in at that point. God bless him.
Remember when he got caught on camera saying Blake Bortles overthrew him and he was like, just throw me the damn ball.
Well, that's because he demands targets and he deserves that ball. But, we went through here. I was getting all fired
I don't know where we are anymore.
We're wrapping things up. But, I was able to let loose a little bit more because I got the desk fan here. And I got to say, I had a lot of trouble. I went to 4 different stores tonight. Is there a fan shortage that I don't know about? Because nobody had fans. And I got this little rinky-dink fan. It was like $8 at Walmart. And I have to put my face against it to feel anything. But it's much better than I was dealing with yesterday. What do you want, Dan?
John, our listeners don't want to hear about fans unless we get a sponsor. Then you might be onto something. But I'm going to cheat again, JB. One for the road for the listeners. Mitch, are you concerned about Jay Sternberger? He's a guy that I think one of your best all-time tips was how they're going to utilize him in a slot. And we're all high on him. But now I'm hearing Robert Tonyan might get a chance at the starting job. I'm getting a little concerned, man. He's on my follower list, even though JB said I couldn't talk about tight ends tonight.
The only reason why I won't have him on my follower list is because he was so far down to begin with. There's not much farther he could fall. I mean, I think I just took him in the 21st round of a startup. And at that point, you're just picking players just for the fun of it. You're like, oh, hey, I've heard of that guy before. I'm going to pick him. So if he had actual value, I would be probably more willing to drop him. But right now, he's still free wherever you want to get him. You can have him added in on any deal you want.
I think I was just disappointed because he was kind of creeping up in that OJ Howard, Irv Smith, Dawson Knox, pick that range, and he's just falling out of it for me. So,
yep.
All right,
that's
John,
the hope,
Dan and I are just butting heads. I will take Jay Sternberger over Dawson Knox and OJ Howard without a doubt.
Over Knox? We actually had a question about Knox in the chat.
Well, let me pull it up.
Sure where it was.
Talk about it.
Yeah. It's Mike Bonal.
For that listener, I do like Dawson.
Yeah, there we go.
He's rising.
Paragraph. So from Mike, what do you guys think of buying in on Dawson Knox? He's a mismatch nightmare, which should benefit from the Bills' play action off the run game. He's a nice contrast to what Diggs and Brown offer. How many passing opportunities or an offense where we saw Cole Beasley and John Brown play really well last year, and now you bring in a legitimate wide receiver one option in Stephon Diggs, and then we're talking about Zach Moss and his ability to catch the ball and what we've been hearing in the offseason so far, and Devin Singletary. I just don't know what's available there for Dawson Knox. That's my issue.
Watching a lot of the games last year, he did target him a lot, and even in the red zone. And I know Diggs is in there, and that's a great point on targets, JB. I'm high on this offense, and I know you're a Josh Allen truther there, JB. We've heard that before, and I think it's a good take. And I think this Bills offense is set to have a really good year. So I think those defenses focusing on the run game, like our listeners said, and focusing on those big time downtown receivers, that really could open up Dawson Knox.
Mitch, so you would take Knox over Sternberger today?
Probably, yeah. I mean, they're so close that I wouldn't be going out and try to acquire either one of them. I mean, it's not like I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and be like, hey, I'm going to go send out some trades for Dawson Knox today. But he's someone, if he's available, I'm more than willing to add him in on a package for something, but it's just...
He's no Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, it's no Jonnu Smith, that's for sure.
He's definitely no Jonnu Smith. I can tell you that.
Jonnu. I don't know how you say that. Jonnu.
Jonnu Smith. All right, guys, are you ready to rock and roll here for
final thoughts?
Dan, bring us home. This is our last live episode for the next 2 weeks, and then we go live on Tuesday nights starting, September 8th, I believe. We'll be live every Tuesday night throughout the season, so bring us home here. What's your final thought for our listeners before I go on vacation?
Showtime's coming. All right, you get a little reprieve from JB for a little while, but keep checking the latest news, guys. Everybody's going to be preparing for their home league draft right before the season or squeaking in one last dynasty roster. But right up to your draft, even during your draft, hop on your app there, look for the latest news. I still have flashbacks of 2015 when a guy in my league took Jordy Nelson, and minutes later he finds out he tears his ACL just because he didn't hop on the news. Something like that happens often. So keep up to date, check the latest news. And when John's on vacation, reminder, I'm cheating on him this Thursday on YouTube in the money, little DFS. And then we'll get back to Dynasty once JB returns.
Whoa. My vacation doesn't start until Friday. So Thursday, I don't know if I can allow that one. You might have to wait until next week. I'll pretend like I didn't hear it, though. But make sure you tune into In the Money with Dan and Justin from the Father Son podcast. That's going to be a lot of fun. Mitch, what do you have for listeners?
Mine's not nearly as good as Dan's is, but go on Twitter, go to Bud Light's Twitter feed.
I saw it.
Watch the Gardner Minshew video and draft him in the first round of your league. You get free beer out of it, and you get Gardner Minshew as your quarterback. I don't know how that could be a losing strategy.
The only thing I saw a lot of people saying this, they should cover your league fee because I don't know if you're really going to win your league. I might actually do that in my home league, though. I might do it.
You should.
I don't want to brag, but I'm in a league with some family members, and I am the reigning champion. So I might take Gardner Minshew just to give them a chance this season, even though I went on like a 10-year drought prior to last year's championship. But I'm not going to talk about that. All right, guys, this was a lot of fun, even though Dan and I, as always, butting heads a little bit. But we did all come prepared with our red shirts. We want to thank everybody that tuned in, especially in the live chat. And we want to thank all of our listeners for checking us out on the podcast feed. Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Dynasty Theory FF. Stay safe, be kind to each other, and have a great night.